What's up, everyone? Coach Tony here with College Admission Secrets. This call, I have a really special guest with me. I'm going to let her introduce herself. She's incredible. We're going to learn about her story, and you'll see why she is amazing there. So, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself, and we'll go ahead and get started.
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Lian Linton. I was a College Admission Secrets Advantage student since my sophomore year, and I was from the Bay. I attended high school in the Bay Area, and I am going to UCLA for computer science and engineering this fall.
Awesome, fantastic. Kudos again for you, Slade. We're gonna get there. We're gonna go through basically your high school journey to get to where you're at right now. But it's kind of bring back us a little bit as well too. We have lots of people kind of on this call, people watching the replays. They're super curious how'd you got here. So we love to kind of just like kind of reveal the curtain, right? Share families, kind of how you got to this location. So I know you mentioned you're in the Bay Area as well. Very competitive. A lot of our families are from the Bay Area as well too. Let's talk about academics first. Okay, so let's talk about academics. Let's kind of walk through kind of all 4 years in high school. What type of classes did you get? What type of grades did you get? If you can just share some of the academic side of your kind of background.
hmm So overall, for the all 4 years, I was pretty much like a decently all A student with like a couple of A minuses there. But basically, I tried to take as many APs as I could. I think out of like I think I took like around 12 in total. And so some of them included like all of the CS courses. So APCSP, APCSA, AP Lang, AP Gov, Econ, all of them. And it kind of just depends for academics, how you compare with your peers at like the schools you're in and things like that. So like usually at our school, it's like people only typically take around 12 to 14 APs. So that's kind of like the range I was hitting, like hoping for. And then on top of that, I think my sophomore year, I started taking more community college courses. So a lot of these courses were based off of my major. So I did like intro to programming, C++, data structures, discrete structures, mathematics, and I'm like currently taking linear algebra. And I think overall for those courses, I kind of stuck. Well, I took a couple of gen ed courses like psych, music, and things like that, but I kind of wanted like a little bit more background into my major, which is CS. So which is why I took some of those community college courses. And I honestly, I know Coach Tony has talked about this a lot, but like I just want to like stress that at least for schools like some schools like UCLA, AP credit doesn't transfer over as much as community college credit, course credit. So that was really beneficial for me for taking those courses because it really helped me like advance more in the coursework. Like right now, I can graduate early because of all the community college course credits I have taken. And so that's really something I'd recommend looking into because if you're like looking for a particular school or things like that, really look into their AP transfer credits and their community college transfer credits, especially if you're like an early on student, like incoming freshman, incoming sophomore, to like take a look at that and then see what you would need to do to like if graduating early is a priority for you too.
Awesome, love it. Question for you. So again, you had again really amazing grades. So quick little kind of feedback. A lot of families also again their kids take a lot of classes too. How'd you study? Like how'd you manage your good grades? Any tricks you can share with students who are gonna like, hey, like how do you study? How do you get better in your classes?
I think it's a lot up to like your own personal preferences. So I'm a huge things to do list person. So I have like tons of things to do lists like every day. Like I have like a weekly things to do list on notes, and then like every day I create like things to do lists. So having those like lists for me really helped me out. And then for studying, I like applying things. So I would like right before a test, I would go through each unit and just like write little notes, create study guides, because like writing those concepts out really helped me. So if you're that type of a student who prefers learning through application, then I would definitely recommend that. Like that really saved me for all of those AP courses, honors courses, even the community college courses. And then just overall, but if you're not that type of a person and you're more like reading it and visualizing it, it's like kind of just goes down to your preferences.
Awesome. Love it. You mentioned dual enrollment a few times. Definitely something we push a lot as one of our big client seeker strategies. So again, I think you were pretty aggressive with taking the amount of classes that you did. How would you balance it? So how do you balance again? A lot of people are kind of a little terrified. Oh my goodness, they're college classes and all this. And right now you're taking linear algebra, a class that's not even taught at the high school level either. So how do you balance? Because like, how do you balance your high school and your college classes together?
I think overall for the community college courses I took, they were more spread out. So like each semester I would only take like one or two, or if sometimes I think my first semester it was like three courses, but like just figuring out like the amount of workload for each course is really helpful because I know at the community college I took it at, it was like there were some courses that ended early or started later. So like thinking about that and thinking about like where you would be at in like the school year, like in high school during those times. And then also things to do lists. They're really helpful.
Awesome, fast. So the next on our to-do list is your activities, right? So that's the academics, super duper smart there. Let's talk about activities a little bit. So kind of walk us, can you similar journey, can you walk us through 9, 10th, 11, 12th grade? What activities did you participate in and kind of what things kind of kept you busy outside of school?
I think overall, I definitely filled in the 20 like activities option that the UC app gave us. So I think I kind of split my activities into like activities I did at school and then activities I did outside. Like one thing that I did all 4 years was I was Girls Who Code president. So I was president for senior year, but basically I was involved in the club for 4 years where I was a member my freshman year, board member sophomore and junior year, and then senior year I was president. So during Girls Who Code, like I helped organize hackathons and like I led this imposter syndrome workshop, which was something that like I kind of established within our club where every year we like have a day where we talk about imposter syndrome and just like how that aligns, like how that can like impact like bringing more women into STEM and things like that. And then another thing was I was also design department head TA, which it basically means that I led like a group of the 30 to 40 CSTAs at our school and basically delegated assignments. And one of our biggest tasks was organizing, like one of my biggest tasks was organizing the design showcase, which is an annual like event that our club hosts. Where it's based, oh sorry, not club, where the design department hosts, where it's like all the design classes come together and present different projects they've done for the year. So I was a CSTA sophomore and junior year, and then senior year is when I became head TA. But like I was involved in helping plan the design showcase, even if it wasn't like leading it, my sophomore and junior year before I became a head TA. And then another thing was, I was also, this is just school, but I was also the captain of our dance team. So that was something that like I really wanted to highlight because it was dance. Like dance was a huge part of me. I've been dancing since I was 12 and I've like gotten a couple of certifications from that. And so because of that, like I wanted to like to show that I'm like a well-rounded student. That was an aspect that I really did like emphasize on even in my essays. And then some out of school activities just really quickly is I did this internship through UC Berkeley had a course called ATDP, which is like a summer enrichment program. And basically, I took the course my sophomore year, which was like programming in Java. And because I got an A plus, I was invited to be a TA the next 2 years. So basically, during that, it was a summer session, and it was like 4 hours every. It was Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and it was 4 hours. So in total, 12 hours. And so basically, then I just helped like teach my small group, which was around 5 to 6 students, and things, and basically like help debug programs and things like that. And then one really, sorry, I shouldn't have left this for the last one, but something that I really, really enjoyed was our school had this research program in partnership with Santa Clara University called Biofeedback in Immersive Environments. So basically, it's through that program I helped create a lot of VR environments, which we created this cave meditative journey where it was like the user would go through a cave and they would be exposed to like stressful biomes and like calming biomes. And during that process, it was like we recorded heart rate variability to show like present like visual cues on the like VR environment to help the user like focus on emotional regulation. So like that one was a project that like I really, really enjoyed. Like I it really showed me like the level of importance for like a major like CS. A lot of it is hands-on application. So I like had no experience with VR at all until I got into that project. And I was like, okay, I really like this type of thing. So I think overall for activities, those are just some. I did a lot of volunteering and things like that. But just like figuring out what you're interested in really helps because like when you're interested in a topic or an activity, then it's like you'll show more commitment to it, and that really helps. Like it's colleges are kind of looking for like the amount of work that you have done, and even if you're not like the president or like holding a leadership position, you can still put in like you can still establish a program or workshop. And so just finding out your passions and like expanding upon them is like the biggest thing.
Love it. You're like teaching everything that we teach out in public. So you're doing great job so far. I have a few fun follow-up questions for you. And I do see some parents start to drop questions. Feel free to keep dropping questions in there. We're gonna kind of ignore it for the next like 10 minutes. We're gonna just go through a few of the questions and then we'll go do Q&A. So share any and all questions in the Q&A box so we can go through it afterwards. But a few questions. You mentioned at the very beginning that you kind of maxed out. So UCs have, for those who don't know, the UCs have up to 20 activity slots. The private schools that use the Common App have up to 10, but UCs have like a ridiculous 20 slots for you to do activities. Was that something that I know you mentioned you kind of filled all up? Was that intentional? Like you come in to that, like, hey, I'm gonna fill 20, or was it like it just, hey, I just did a lot that it kind of filled up all 20?
I think it was kind of both. Like, I definitely did a lot, enough to fill up the 20, but I also was like, I didn't want to leave anything blank. Like, it's a lot about like showing, like, like those activities really like help the college admissions readers see like a wider perspective of you. So I definitely like intended to fill up all those 20 activities. Like, even if I hadn't done as many as I did, like, I would definitely try my best to like try to not leave anything blank.
Awesome. I have a fun question for you. So I think people can do this. You're computer science, right? You're interested in computer science, but you're also like in the Bay Area. A lot of people are kind of interested in the Bay Area. So I'm curious to know, like, how did that interest in computer science start for you? Because I know you mentioned the word interest a few times as well too. We have some students who don't know what they're interested in yet. So like, can you kind of share how you kind of found computer science for you? And for students that are like unsure kind of what they want to do, what advice kind of going through your journey would you recommend for them as well?
Mhm. For computer science, I really like the hands-on application perspective about it. I really like, I think even as a child, like I would like work on like tiny, it would just be like the silliest like CS programs, like it would be like a number guessing game or things like that, where it was like I would use my interest and then like use like the little bit of CS knowledge I knew to like create a little program. And the thing is like I feel like since CS is such a broad field, like I definitely I felt like because my interest kind of stemmed when I was like when I think it was more of like when I was in elementary school, and so I really like as a young little kid like I really liked the power like CS gave me because it was like I could do anything I wanted in the digital space type of thing. So I think like the hands-on level of projects you can do like even if like because for me it was like I see all these like really like grown-ups. Well, okay, sorry. Like I see like grown-ups like doing different things like in different fields, like doing a lot of successful things. And for me, I was like, even as a child, CS gives me the platform to do things like that if I was interested in it. And so it was like I can make a change in the world through CS type of thing. So that's what really attracted me to it. And I think overall, what really like helped me like break this down was the college essay writing experience. Like I think from that, like I kind of like just kind of pursued CS because like that's the major I wanted to go to. But writing the college like writing college essays or like the admissions essays really like the coaches really helped me like break down like exactly why I was interested in it. So I feel like college essay writing is definitely like a process of self-discovery. So definitely like it will be like since it is first semester senior year, it can be stressful because of the time crunch, but definitely like enjoy that process and getting to know yourself more.
Love it. You mentioned the power that CS gave. I really enjoyed that line, and I think kind of stemmed nice to my next thing, right? So you did Girls Who Code, and you led that imposter syndrome workshop. I remember us talking about that as well too. Can you talk a little bit more about that? You mentioned like women in STEM, so you're very involved in a lot of these things. They're basically empowerment kind of side as well. So can I share a little bit about that, kind of why that came to be? Did you join Girls Who Code for that reason, or did that come about because you joined it? So you can talk about that for a little bit as well too.
Yeah. So I think a lot of it was also like the lack of representation there is for women in STEM specifically. Like even in the CS classes I took at school, like high school and the community college courses, it's like I would be like the one or like there would be like 3 to 4 girls in like a room of like 30 students. And I feel like because of that, like us, including me, like women in STEM tend to feel isolated because of the aspect that there's not that many like, there's like a lack of representation, and because of that it's like you often feel discouraged because it's like you don't have people who share the same experiences with you and things like, and so that kind of says like are you really up for this or think like it kind of causes those thoughts, which is a lot of like what falls under imposter syndrome. And what in Girls Who Code, like I was for the hackathons, I was a women in tech panelist. So I helped like lead a lot of discussions with like notable women in tech who we like invited to our hackathons about like these different aspects about imposter syndrome. And I think that's what like kind of like got me interested in organizing this like imposter syndrome workshop, because Girls Who Code is a really good space because you that lack of representation, like that's not an issue anymore because you are with other women in STEM who are also interested in the same things you are. So it's like together it's more of like the community aspect of empowering each other. And so the imposter syndrome workshop, it was just like a workshop that we did where it was like the first meeting of our club. And so it was more community aspect where we sit in small groups and we like discuss, there's a couple of guiding questions so the board members or leadership would hold like ask those questions and just have like initiate more conversation, because a lot of it is also like a lot of the issue is that a lot of it is in like all of these feelings of imposter syndrome, isolation aren't being talked about. So creating that supportive space was like really important to me, coming from someone who also like kind of felt that little bit of like isolation in like the classes I attended. So because of that is kind of why I led the imposter syndrome workshop.
Awesome. Perfect. One more question, and we'll probably transition over to application. I know you teased that a little earlier too.
Mhm.
You mentioned like a lot of things you can tell. You mentioned the word interest, that you're interested in these various things, the VR, the coding. You did that. You also mentioned being well-rounded, right? What colleges are looking for as well. So thinking back at reflecting back at your activities, how much would you say is kind of because did you do stuff more to impress the college admissions folks? Did you do stuff because you were interested? How much is part? It might be a mix of both, right? So when you think back to your activity specifically, how much of that was guided by interest versus guided by what looks good for college?
Mhm. I
Mhm.
think it was definitely a mix. Like there was a little bit of like what looks good for college too, but I kind of tried to follow like my interests overall. Like I kind of it was really more of like I think the thought process is what is my interest, like figuring that out and then like being involved in those like communities, those club activities, and then kind of like on the in the back of my mind I was like, "Oh, I could use this for college." But overall it was more being empowered by like that interest and passion over kind of like that's the thing. Like the colleges aren't like they're not looking for like, "Oh, you have to do this one specific activity." It's talking about like what activity you're doing and like how you're passionate about it. So like fueling that like motivation off of your interest is really a big thing. But also like it was definitely there. Like, oh, okay, this is gonna be good for college too.
Love it. Awesome. Cool. Let's move on to the last and kind of I was always argue the most important component is the application itself, right? So you're kind of just wrapping up, you're about to head off to college, which is super exciting for you. A lot of our, I think people here who are here live are entering high school senior year for the first time. So they're super, super nervous. So basically, if you can think back literally a year ago from now, right? So this is when we first started talking about, let's talk about apps, we'll talk about this now. Can you walk us through kind of that process in your head, kind of like how'd you get to your school list? How'd you pick your colleges? So kind of think back to your like kind of commentate your incoming 12th grade self, right? What did those first few months of the application process look like for you?
Hmm. A lot of it did like a part of it did rely because I was applying CS on ranking because like what's like the best CS program and things like that was something I did look for. Like CS rankings helped me out with that. But another thing that I really wanted to like keep in mind was the school environment too. I think a lot of like in order to it was a little bit more of a process in looking into that, but what really helped was like reaching out to seniors I knew who attended some of these colleges, and also like the college admission secrets coaches here really helped in like figuring out what's like the best school for you. And so overall, I admit it, like I applied to all 9 UCs, and then like a couple of out of states like UT Austin, UMich, UIUC, Georgia Tech, UMD, and a couple more, and then USC. And I think a part of the decision is like I didn't apply to any of the Ivies because of like financial reasons, and also I didn't like I kind of, sorry, one second. I applied CS for all those major or those colleges just because like CS is really competitive, really hard to get into, but I had prioritized more of the major over the college itself. So for me, I was like, hey, I wanna like I would prefer learning like like CS at like a lower ranking college than like another major that I wasn't interested in. So that was one of the aspects. And then another thing was I wanted to stay in state. So so I kind of I think the what I like struggled with the most was like identifying what would be safety, fit, and reach. So I applied to a lot of CSUs, which kind of adds on to the like 39 like colleges that I applied to, which in hindsight I kind of would not have applied if I were in that position like a year ago. Just because I think so one thing was like my parents hadn't attended college here and I was the first child of the family, and CS is a really competitive field. So for us it was more of just like, hey, let's keep those safeties, like we still want CS, but it was like keep those safeties. So that's why I applied to like a ton of CSUs, which in reality don't do that. Like I feel like if you're at a certain GPA level, just a little lesson, but if you're at a certain GPA level, then just kind of like figure out what GPA, like because CSUs are only based off of GPA. So if at that like kind of use the GPA you're at right now to like see what CSU you would get into, and then from that kind of like just applied to the more reach ones depending on like what's your major and what school is good for your major there. So that's definitely like a bit of advice that I would like learn from me. Don't do that. It's a lot of money too. Um, but I think that's why I applied to so many colleges. But overall, it was like I think this is also to answer like one of the parents' questions, but a lot of them were the CSUs. I think like 15 of them were CSUs, which was a lot, but it was just like keeping those safeties in mind. So I definitely like maxed on as many safeties as I could, and then there was a couple of fit, and then like all the out of state colleges like UIUC, Georgia Tech, UMich, um, they were all like in my mind reach schools just because CS is such a competitive area, or sorry, CS is such a competitive major. So it was just more of like because of the major I had, like I had to apply to more colleges. But yeah.
Awesome. Fantastic. Fantastic. Yeah. Let's just kind of break down the actual app itself, right? So you applied to a bunch of schools, right? Applied to a bunch of schools, safeties, everything, right? I think we talked about academics. You shared that. You talked about activities, right? Filling up all 20 slots there. Let's move on to the essays. I think that's always the fun topic that people always like to ask, like to find out about. So when it comes to the essay process, can you kind of walk us through it as well too? Kind of again, similarly, we have a lot of incoming seniors who are going to be watching this as well too. What kind of topics did you kind of come up with for your if you can remember the 4 prompts for the UCs, if you can remember the other private schools as well, what prompt do you talk about over there? And then for a student going through this process, like once you shared yours, kind of how'd you get there, and what advice would you give to a incoming senior, and like how can they identify their topics as well too?
Mhm. Okay, so basically for my seniors, try to write those PIQ drafts at least in before like the end of summer because that's really helpful for supplemental essays. Some of the talks that I discussed were I definitely talked about CS as my academic subject because I was like interested in it, and like I did so much about it. So I was like, okay, CS is definitely a topic. And then another thing that I definitely talked about was dance. So dance was like, I think I wrote it as the creative side of it, which where I basically kind of showed like how that's how I like, because I'm Indian American, so I had like I think the main like idea behind that essay was just like because of these two conflicting cultural standards, it's often like hard to express yourself, and like dance was that pathway for me. So that was definitely a topic. I'm sorry, I'm like struggling to remember, but I think another one was I think for the PIQs I talked about teaching. So where I was like, I basically did this computer hardware course at a local public library and then at a school in India as well. So this was like, I kind of, because I already had my CS essay, this was more focused on how I like, because this, I think the question was like, what is your greatest skill and how have you developed it over time? So I kind of focused more on like how I've like developed my skill as teaching. So just like choosing topics overall, like that show different aspects of yourself is really important. Like even if you have done like all like whatever major you're in, like let's say if you were in CS, like if, even if you've done all CS activities, you can still like pick apart different things and be like focus on like the teaching aspect or like the project aspect or things like that in your essays. So just to differentiate the different just to differentiate your essays to show like different parts of yourself. And then I think my fourth one was I was a treasurer for one of our church youth community, like our church youth community. And so that's actually an activity I missed to talk about. But basically, we helped like design this like room and raise funds. Like we raised around like $3,000. And so just talking about my involvement, why it was important to me, and just always like I feel like one thing that I remember Coach Tony always saying is like make sure to like have eyes and knees in your essays, and that's like especially for PIQ drafts, like always like connect it back to yourself because at the end of the day, the college admissions readers are looking for more about you, not about the actual activity itself. So that's something I struggled with, but then like eventually learned how to do.
Love it. Awesome. I'm going to ask a selfish question next. So, I think you've been with us again so since sophomore year till now. So we've been with you, I think, 3 years now. So, thinking back, either on apps or in general, the whole process, like how did our team help you? People always are curious, like how the behind the scenes looks like. So, how did our team help you? Did you feel our team helped you with this journey, and kind of sharing that answer there?
Definitely. Like I've attended the weekly calls and like to be frank, like a lot of what I've just said here is a lot of like what Coach Tony has said in his weekly sessions. And then I think what really, really helped me was the UC App Intensive and the personal, or I think it was the Common App Intensive. Those two sessions, like I recommend like 100% like attend those sessions. They really help you, especially incoming seniors, because for us, like though basically these app intensive sessions are basically like you get 2 days like that it would be that weekend and you work on all your PIQ drafts or like your personal statement and your comment like your entire UC application you try to get done within those 2 days or your common app application. So I felt like that one was like that those sessions especially were like a really great space for me to just like reach out. Like coaches were like available during those times of the sessions where they could just be like you could just like run an idea by them, like meet with them and be like, hey, what if I talked about this for my personal statement? And that really helped me like for drafting different essay topics and things like that because a lot of it is like the coaches won't tell you what to say because that's on you, but they help like guide you through like your reasons, like what makes you. I think I mentioned this, but like college admissions essays are like a path of self discovery. So it's more of like they'll keep on asking you why are you doing this, and not like in like trying to like pick at it and trying to figure out like what's like the internal reason, like how does it tie back to you as a person. And I felt like those app intensive sessions were really helpful, and just like having that dedicated time to finish it, like basically just like sit there and like get that application done type of thing, which really it was really helpful. And especially with like the mentoring assistants available, it was like we can easily just like join a breakout room and be like, hey, like could you check this? So I really like that. Like and then also just the catch ups, and then anytime like I was an advantage student so I could just like if especially during that cram session of like getting those applications in, I remember like adding different like the coaches and being like, hey, could you look at this like activities thing, or like could you look at my PIQs really quickly. So that like really helped a lot.
Love it. Awesome. I have a second selfish question before you. And by the way, right now we're about to pretty much to come to the end of my question. So if anyone has questions, drop them in the chat. I know Leah can stay a little bit and she can answer a few of the questions. So if anyone has questions, drop it in live. Second selfish question I have as well. So we have a few parents probably watching this call right now. And they're kind of on the fence of like, hey, should I reach out and take the first step, do a free call just to see if it's a good fit? You that you've kind of gone through this process yourself, what would you recommend to those parents who are like kind of on the edge? Should I book a call to see if I should chat, see if we can work together? What advice would you kind of give those families?
I 100% recommend like booking that call. Like I remember meeting Coach Tony with that initial call and like hearing about the different like programs and opportunities College Admission Secrets offers, and that really got me interested in the entire program itself, which is why I did the program. But like overall, I think this program really helps, especially from a parent perspective. Like it's definitely like a it takes the weight off your shoulders because your children are working with coaches who've led so many students to like different like really prestigious schools, and they've been part of this they've been part of this, I wouldn't say field, but like they've been counseling for a while, so they know exactly like what to do, what college admissions officers are looking for, and like having those mentors available to answer your questions is really really helpful. So I would definitely recommend booking that initial call.
That's like perfect. I'm gonna clip that and I'm gonna put it everywhere. Awesome. So let's just I do have one more question. I'll save it to the end though. But let's go ahead and jump into like some parent questions. Is okay. So one of the parents here said, I heard you got into 39 colleges. How many did you apply to in total? I think you kind of answered this question a little bit, but you can kind of skim through it real fast. But 39 schools, how many did you apply to? Why did you apply so many? And would you recommend applying to those many?
So one part of it was just I like CS, computer science and engineering, both really difficult majors. So that's kind of why I like applied to so many colleges. And then again, even with that, like a good half of that was CSUs, so no essays. And so one thing to keep in mind is just with with more colleges you're adding to your list. One, I think Common App has like a 20 college limit, and then like UCs obviously have their 9 colleges. But like if you're planning on applying to more, just like keep in mind that it's more essays. For me, like 39, there's a lot of CSUs in there, so it wasn't as much. But just overall, just be mindful of that. I think it helps to have a good amount of safeties, fit, and reach, and that's something that's really important in figuring out for the college list process. So if you feel like you need to apply to one more college because you need one more safety, then definitely. If you want to do a reach, like that's totally like up to you. Because I know, like I got into a good amount of my reaches too. So it's like sometimes it's especially for CS, it's like more of like the process is like hard to predict because the field like the major's so competitive. But if you are applying to like a major like that, then it's like just keep in mind of that. But yeah, pretty much it.
Awesome, perfect. The other parent asked, did you apply to computer science in all the colleges, or did you apply to other majors, especially in the UCs?
So I think I mentioned this, but I like preferred getting the major over the college itself. So for me, I applied CS just because I was like, hey, like I really want to do CS. Like it doesn't really, the college doesn't really matter. Like it's oh, because CS is offered in most schools. The program and like the facilities available are different, obviously, but it's not like I felt like for me, I wanted CS over the college. So just figuring that out, it doesn't have to be that way. Like you can have like a college, like you can prefer a college, and because of that, you could like change your major itself. And that's totally fine. Like I know there's like similar majors like data science and like I think data science is the only one that's coming to me right now, but that's similar. And if you feel like that aligns more with your interests, like it's easier to get into, still competitive, but an easier process. So just like also like the colleges that you apply to, like think about how competitive CS is at, or well, not CS, but like any major you're applying to at those colleges. I think the UCLA, I'm basically going in as computer science and engineering, which I had kind of preferred because I wanted the hardware and software aspect of it, but it wasn't offered in a lot of the UCs and a lot of the out of states that I applied to. So that's why I applied CS. But thankfully, computer science and engineering worked out at UCLA.
Awesome. Someone said, did you get into Cal Poly since you mentioned you got into a lot of Cal States?
hmm I did get into Cal Poly for CS. I think a lot of it, again, for CS uses more on grades.
Hmm.
And for me, it was, I think, one aspect is like they'll look at your grades and then also like you basically input on your in all your community college courses and community college APs and like your normal high school courses. And one thing to keep in mind is that it is like the way they calculate GPA at CSUs is like capped. So like the it's even if you're taking like many honors courses or many like community college courses, like I think I'm not too sure about the details, but just keep in mind if your GPA seem like, especially your weighted GPA seems less than what your usual GPA is, that's totally fine. Like it's just how they calculate your CSU GPA. And if you're a high GPA ranked like student, then Cal Poly is definitely like an option for sure.
I want to chime in a little bit for to give some context. I think she says grades. Some people are like, what do you mean just grades? So literally on the Cal State application, you enter academics, right? When it says activities, it says, did you participate in activities? You click yes, and that's it. That's the whole app. There's no essays, there's nothing else. So literally you enter grades, classes, did you do it? Click yes for activities, and then that's pretty much it as well too. So that's what the context there. Someone asked, what schools did you not get into?
So I applied to all nine UCs and I got waitlisted from Berkeley. And I was initially waitlisted from UCLA, but like I wrote like we there was like I got off the waitlist basically, and then I was rejected from UT Austin. But those are the only colleges that I didn't get into.
Nice. I think you kind of did answer this question as well, but can you share some other schools you got accepted into? What made you choose UCLA in the end?
Mhm. So some of the top schools I got into were UIUC, Georgia Tech, UMich, UC San Diego, like a lot of the UCs, UMD, Purdue, USC, and like a couple like more. But overall, I think it was definitely a process because before getting that, like waitlists come in like for me it was like a week before I graduated. So like the notification, UCLA was definitely my top. So for me, I was like, hey, like I really want to go to UCLA. But before, I think some of my options were like Georgia Tech, USC, UCSD, and UIUC. Like those were like the pretty top schools for CS. So I was kind of debating over all of them. Definitely location was a factor I had to consider. Um, I wanted to stay in state, and also like travel costs can end up being pretty high, especially if it's out of state. And another thing like tuition, definitely you have to pay money for college and that can get pretty expensive. Another thing was just like the major program itself, like did I want to focus more on like because USC has a really good alumni network, so do I want to focus more on like the industry level work or do I want to do graduate studies, so kind of figuring that out. But those were all factors I had to take into consideration. But yeah,
Awesome.
UCLA pulled through though.
That's what ruins. I think this is one more question here. Did you get any merit scholarships for any colleges?
Yeah, so I think one thing is um, something that helped out for USC because USC is really expensive. Like I think it's like 90K for cost of like attendance. I was a national merit finalist. So basically, for national merit finalists, if you mark USC as your top school, they'll give you half tuition off. Which basically, because it's only tuition off, it'll round up to be around 60K. But that helped. Like that was one of the merit scholarships I did get. I obviously wasn't like I didn't end up like continuing with USC because I had preferred UCLA. It's also cheaper. Um, but like I think the being like a national merit finalist helped. So especially like for juniors who are doing their PSAT, um, try to keep that in mind for if you want like merit scholarships through that program. But other than that, I didn't get any merit scholarships. I think I did for like some colleges. I can't remember the specifics right now, but it was I think yeah.
Awesome. Perfect. I think that's pretty much that. I have one final question, or it's a series of questions to kind of wrap up with. I was like asking a lot of our students these questions. So like, you kind of been there, done that now, right? Officially, like in a week, you'll be graduate from our program as well, too. Your kind of thing. So it's kind of looking back now, right? We have the little emojis coming in through as well, too. So looking back, I think in the call right now, we have I think every grade represented here as well, too. Even our coaches are here. Well, shout out to our coaches as well, too. So in terms of our call, our call, in terms of like looking back, always love ending with like, what's a piece of advice you want to give to each grade? So like we have incoming seniors coming in right now, we have incoming juniors, sophomores, and freshmen. So kind of starting from the top, and we'll go down to freshmen. What's one piece of advice that you'd give to each grade?
I think, do we start off with freshmen or seniors?
Your choice.
Okay, I can start off with freshmen, but basically freshmen, sophomores, like I said, just kind of focus on those activities, find your interests, because the more interest you are in like an activity, the more effort you'll put in just overall. Like that's just like a psychological thing. Like you'll feel more inclined to do more for that club or organization if you're more interested in it. So like take some time like to sit down, write all your interests down, like what and like if you're doing some activities right now, like figuring out which ones work for you, which ones don't, and like trying taking that like moment of time just to reflect. I think for juniors, I think like I mentioned, standardized testing is around the corner. So like if you guys are planning on going like out of state, I know some colleges now require SAT or ACT. So and like SAT has like the new digital form too. So like keep in mind of those changes, and also like what I really recommend for that is like just practice. I know there's like practice as like past SAT. I took the SAT, so I know there's past SAT questions online. And so even if you're not doing like a tutoring, like even if you're not like learning a test prep, if you're not going to a test prep organization, like just doing those past practice tests really help, and like learning to apply the different skills they test in the SAT. So that's just like a word of advice for standardized testing. And then also grades. Activities are again still important. Grades also, what college admissions officers are looking for is more of like a trend. So try to maintain the grades you got freshman year, sophomore year, or at least like if you feel like you need improvement for that, like work on that. Just kind of like I think for every grade level, just taking a moment to like figure out where you are at with this college admissions process is really helpful, because then you can work on what you need to do, what you're doing well so far, kind of thing. And you could also reach out to any of the coaches to help you out with that. And then my seniors, you guys got this. First semester senior year, even for me, I took a bunch of APs, so I was like, oh my God, so stressed out. But really reach out, like get those PIQ drafts in at least before the summer, because again, I used a lot of my PIQs for my supplemental essays. So especially I like one of my PIQs was like what academic subject I liked. So I used that for like why major questions and things like that. Again, supplemental essays aren't released until August 1st, but you generally have like a good idea of what they'll ask. Like there'll always be like why this school or why this major, things like that. So if you just keep that in mind, if you want to do that research early on in the summer, feel free to do that. If when you're doing those PIQ drafts, reach out to the coaches, like share your ideas, because I feel like if you get too involved into the process and like with an idea that like you can't completely flesh out properly, then it's like just reach out early on so you're not like wasting time. But also another thing is like just understand that it takes time. Like college admissions essay writing. Well, like I went through multiple drafts for my personal statements and my PIQs. Like I switched from different topics. And so just one, reach out because it makes the whole process easier and less frustrating. And then two, just like be okay with the amount of time it will take and expect a lot of drafts. So like just like really embrace the process because you get to know a lot more about yourself by writing essays. And so you guys all got this. All like I think freshman to senior years, college apps, like as someone who's just like just finished it, it can seem really stressful. Once you're done, it's like so much of a reward. So just keep on going. You guys got this.
Awesome. We had one question kind of slip in real fast. I want to sneak it in as well too. What college did you commit to before getting off the wait list for UCLA?
So for me, I think this is really particular for me because I ended up committing to UCSD because again, they accepted a lot of the community college course credits and was also like the least expensive option. And I visited, and sometimes it's like not the higher ranking schools that you like when you visit. Like for UCSD, like UCSD is still pretty high ranked. So, but like in comparison, sometimes like when I visited UCSD, I was like, oh my God, I love this campus. this is it for me. Obviously, UCLA was still my top, but that's like I was set on UCSD until the waitlist came through.
Awesome. With that, I want to thank you for an amazing interview. Also, thank you and your family for being an amazing family in our coaching program. I know I see your parents here in the chat. I bet they're really, really proud of you. And you should be really proud of yourself as well, too. You deserve all your success as well. So that's pretty much. Thank you everyone for joining us live on this call. I'm super excited to hear some more fun, exciting news from you on over the next few years. I know you say just the beginning of your successes as well too. Okay,
Thank you so much.
of course.